Back on the RJ Young Show, Mayberry on the ones and twos. Talk a little college football by way of recruiting because MaxPreps put out its all-decade teams, and they actually did a really cool thing in that they didn't stop at just the first team. They put out 3 teams. And there's a great way to look at some of this, right? Going from 2010 to 2019. And I'm going to lead with this. To the chagrin of many, some call themselves Oklahoma fans, Brendan Radley-Hiles made the 3rd team as a corner. He picked off 5 passes at IMG after transferring there from Calabasas and led the Ascenders to a number 2 ranking in the 2018 class. Huge pickup for Mike Stoops at the time, right? Committed at the All-American game. And I was excited about him because I was going, there's a shutdown corner. Wanted a shutdown corner. A dude that loved to play press man coverage. That was an absolute awesome boundary corner for the Ascenders. And what does he do when he gets to Oklahoma? They move him to nickel. And I submit to you, he has not been the best player that he could possibly be, even as he had a better sophomore season than people give him credit for. But then you look at the rest of the 3rd team, and it gets out of hand real quick with just how nasty this 3rd team is. Not the 1st team, not the 2nd team, the 3rd team. Nick Bosa, coming out of St. Thomas Aquinas, same one Jaden Davis came out of, by the way, is on this 3rd team. 4-year starter, had 20 sacks in the 2017 class from his sophomore to senior year. We know what kind of a player he turned out to be, not just at Ohio State, but hey, there's your defensive rookie of the year last year, and he was this close to winning a Super Bowl, okay? Dexter Lawrence, coming out of Wake Forest, North Carolina, number 2 overall recruit in the 247 Sports Composite rankings, 204 tackles at the defensive line position, 65 tackles for loss, 28 sacks in his career. Just nasty. You all know he went to Clemson, won a national championship, part of that 2018 team that was just super nasty. Handing Nick Saban the worst L he's ever had at Alabama in the game that matters the most. Deshaun Hand. Goodness me. Deshaun Hand's monster. 5-star defensive lineman, had 56 sacks over the course of his career. And then they finished out with a 2020 kiddo. Yeah, Brian Brzee, coming out of Damascus, Maryland. He is a freshman at Clemson right now. He is the top non-quarterback in the 2020 class. Bryce Young and DJ Ungugale are ahead of him in the rankings. He's number 3. Had 134 tackles, 35 sacks, and 80 tackles for loss. Also was an outstanding running back for the Hornets. And you could see what kind of a player he was going to be. He's already perfecting these elite level Street Fighter moves coming off the line. Tremendous hand speed. And I keep going through this 3rd team. And Buda Baker is here, man. Yeah, that Buda Baker. The one that went to Washington, the one that showed out at Arizona. Led the Wolverines to a 14-0 season 3 straight times. And was their big-time playmaker on offense, on defense, and on special teams. That Buda Baker. Keely Ringo is also on this 3rd team. Another 2020 kiddo. Went to Saguaro. Same one that Christian Kirk went to. Perhaps the best DB in the 2020 class, on the strength of he's knocking off Eric Gilbert at these one-on-one competition. Eric Gilbert, perhaps the best tight end prospect of the last 3 years. He's going to LSU, all 6'5", 253 pounds of him. Keely Ringo's just a remarkable athlete. He needs to work on his technique. He needs to work on his hands. But he is an oversized corner. I'll be interested to see if Kirby Smart allows him to continue to play corner if they move him to safety, because he is every bit of 6'2", 210, and he's got a tremendous frame to grow. He could probably end up being 230. And then as Isaiah Simmons is in vogue, maybe they want to move him around in that space linebacker, box safety type of situation if he becomes that kind of tackler in the SEC. Xavier McKinney is also on this 3rd team. Yeah, the same Xavier McKinney that went to Alabama, the same Xavier McKinney who is a 1st-round pick by some to my Dallas Cowboys. 192 tackles come out of Roswell, Georgia, 16 interceptions, leading his Hornets to back-to-back state championships in Georgia's largest classification. If you didn't know, Georgia football, high school football, 2nd best in the country. based on how many blue chippers they put out. Florida being number 1, right? California being number 3, and then Texas, right? Georgia plays some football. And the kiddos that come out of Georgia can usually light you up. Trey Sermon, he's from Georgia. Jaden Hazelwood, he's from Georgia. You get where I'm going with this? Grant Delpit is also on this third team. Just the Paycom Jim Thorpe Award winner from last year. Just to do the Don and number 7 for the LSU Tigers coming off a national championship, 15-0 season. They called him Baby Jamal Adams while he was there. Had an injury-plagued season, didn't play up to his expectations last year, but he's probably going to get drafted in the first round. I don't know that he goes to the Cowboys, but I could see him going a number of other places. And then, dude that I talked about earlier in the show, Micah Parsons, as an all-purpose player, not as a linebacker, as an all-purpose player. Coming out of 2018 class, 240 tackles, 64.5 tackles for loss, 42.5 sacks. And then, rushed for 1,200 yards with 29 touchdowns during his senior season. That's the third team. That's the third team defense. That's just nasty. That's super salty. Mayberry. Makes you wonder what the first and second team look like, right? Like, I love looking at high school football and recruiting as a way to look at the NFL and or college football, because you get to understand just how dominant you have to be considered a 4 or 5-star prospect. Because Mayberry mentioned it, but we'll talk about it, right? Let's take the second team, all right? Take the second team. Second team, or no, you know what? Screw that. Let's go to the third team offense. Deshaun Watson, starting quarterback, whatever. He thrown for more yards and touchdowns than any other quarterbacks except Trevor Lawrence in Georgia history, and led his Red Elephants at Gainesville, Georgia, to their only state championship his junior season. Dabo Swinney compared him to, Michael Jordan. Won a national championship. I give him that. Jake Browning, coming out of Tulsa, California, is second. For me. But when you throw for 16,775 yards with 229 career passing touchdowns, I get it. And then Matty Mock. There's a name. He of Mizzou, right? Over 11,000 yards passing. Also add 2,700 yards on the ground. Nearly 19,000 yards from scrimmage. Most all-time in passing, 19,000 yards passing is the most all-time. My goodness. 18,932 yards passing? Full how? That's what's, oh my goodness. Then Joe Burrow, he's it's a lot of go routes. Joe Burrow makes he's the 4th-string quarterback on this, dude. The 4th-string quarterback. 156 passing touchdowns, 3rd most in Ohio history, only trailing the Mock brothers, right? And then, of course, he's coming out of Athens, which is the Plains in Ohio. Will Greer's also on this list. He's pretty good coming out of Davidson, North Carolina. Ezekiel Elliott is your starting running back. Yeah, okay. Accounts for over 5,000 yards all-purpose. We could see it. 90 touchdowns in 2 years. Also, Najee Harris, who's still in college. Still part of that vaunted 2017 Alabama class. He's going to get the rock a lot next year. Number 2 overall recruit in that class. 8,000 yards, 93 touchdowns throughout his sophomore and senior season. And then Bijan Robinson, who I absolutely am on board for. Bijan Robinson, 3 straight 2,000-yard rushing seasons coming out of South Point Catholic. That's ridiculous. 17.7 yards per carry during his senior season. There were high school coaches that held him to 300 yards rushing, held him, and said, I think we did a pretty good job with him. Then Trey Sanders, who's at Alabama, he missed his freshman year due to an ACL injury, but he was outstanding coming out of IMG. Marvin Mims makes the squad. He's another Sooner. I mention him many times because the records are the records, man. When you catch 2,629 yards receiving in one season and you break the national record for receiving yards in a season, you're going to make the list, right? Add to that the more than 5,000 yards receiving to usurp Jordan Shipley as the leading receiver in Texas high school football history, right? Keep going down here. Sage Surratt is a dude that not enough people know about, and I'm glad that he's on this list. Coming out of Lincolnton, North Carolina, went to Wake Forest, set records, 366 receptions, 5,926 yards receiving, 80 touchdown receptions. Just nasty. Evan Neal, he's at Alabama right now. Outstanding offensive lineman. Oklahoma wanted him in the worst way. He flirted. He committed to Alabama, reopened, and then recommitted. He's going to have a great career there. Miles Morale coming out of Mater Dei. Goodness me. Walker Little coming out of Episcopal. Yeah, that Episcopal. Bel Air, Texas, right? I mean, you keep going down this list, and you got to get to all-purpose back. That's where Christian McCaffrey fits in. Let me say that again. You had to fit Christian McCaffrey at all-purpose. Colorado Gatorade Player of the Year, 2012 and 2013, coming out of this 2014 class. Ended his career with the state's all-time leading career scorer, 848 points, 141 touchdowns, and 8,845 all-purpose yards. You know he went to Stanford. You know he got robbed of the Heisman. You know that he is your fantasy darling. Right? That's the third team offense. Mayberry. My goodness. That's ridiculous. I can't stand it. That's awesome. I love knowing these facts about these dudes because, again, it underscores just how good you have to be. That the best player that you've ever seen probably ain't the best player that you would have seen, right? Like, I believe that Prentice Elliott, best football player I've ever seen. Dax Hill's very close. He's very close. But Prentice was able to do stuff I ain't ever seen anybody do. But Prentice wouldn't make this list. Come on. What?